The salt air stunned my nostrils as I stood on the weathered porch of what my mother-in-law, Catherine, had dubbed Emily's Folly. The old beach house creaked in the wind, its faded blue paint peeling away to reveal the history beneath. My inheritance from Great Aunt Emily had been met with mockery from my husband's family. But standing here now, I felt a deeper connection to the mystery that was about to unfold. "Anna, darling," my mother-in-law's voice dripped with false sympathy during last week's family dinner, "you really should just sell it. The property taxes alone will eat up your teacher's salary." She adjusted her tennis bracelet, a gift from her latest Mediterranean cruise. "Though I doubt anyone would pay much for that eyesore." My husband James had shifted uncomfortably in his seat but said nothing. He never did when his mother was on one of her tirades about my unfortunate background. After all, I was just a high school history teacher who had married into the prestigious Campbell family. What did I know about property management? But Great Aunt Emily had known exactly what she was doing when she left me the old Richardson beach house. "You'll understand its value," she'd written in her will. "You always saw the stories behind things that others missed." Now, 1 week after that uncomfortable dinner, I stood on the property that had caused so much family drama, waiting for Dr. Sarah Chin from the State Historical Society. Her email yesterday had been cryptic but urgent. "Found something in the archives. Need to verify in person. Don't tell anyone yet." The crunch of tires on gravel announced her arrival. Dr. Chin emerged from her car clutching a leather portfolio, her eyes already fixed on the house's Victorian architecture. "Mrs. Campbell," she extended her hand. "Thank you for meeting me on such short notice. Please call me Anna." I led her up the creaking steps. "Your email mentioned a discovery." She nodded, following me into the grand foyer where dust motes danced in the afternoon, light streaming through salt-stained windows. "What do you know about this house's history?" I ran my hand along the ornate banister. "It was built in 1876 by the Richardson family. They were merchants, I think. The house passed through several owners before my great-aunt's family acquired it in the 1940s. Sarah smiled, opening her portfolio. "That's the public history, but yesterday I found these." She pulled out a stack of yellowed photographs and documents. They were misfiled in the state archives, hidden away for decades. My historian's heart quickened as I examined the first photograph. It showed the house in its prime, a magnificent example of Victorian architecture with a widow's walk overlooking the Atlantic. But it was the people in the photo that caught my attention. A group of figures huddled on the porch at night, some carrying bags. "Look at the date," Sarah pointed. 1852. I frowned. But the house wasn't built until 1876. That's what the public records say. She spread more documents across the dusty dining room table. But these tell a different story. The Richardson Beach House wasn't just a merchant's home, Hannah. It was a key station on the Underground Railroad. The world seemed to shift beneath my feet as the implications sank in. But that would mean the house is at least 20 years older than officially recorded. The Richardson family deliberately obscured its age and history to protect its secret. She pulled out architectural plans. "Look at these hidden rooms, concealed passages, all designed to hide people escaping slavery." My hands trembled as I examined the plans. Suddenly, all the house's quirks made sense. The oddly placed closets, the unexplained crawl spaces I'd discovered during my initial exploration. "There's more," Sarah continued. "The house didn't just shelter people fleeing north. It was also a meeting place for abolitionists, including several prominent historical figures. We found correspondence suggesting Frederick Douglass himself may have stayed here." I sank into a dusty chair, my mind racing. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because developers have been pressuring the city council to approve demolition permits for this entire stretch of beachfront. 3 major hotel chains are competing for the property." She met my eyes. "If this house's true historical significance is verified, it would not only be protected from demolition, but would qualify for substantial preservation grants." A knock at the door interrupted us. Through the wavering glass, I recognized James's sister Elizabeth's sleek silhouette. "Hide these," I whispered to Sarah, helping her quickly gather the documents. Elizabeth had a habit of reporting everything back to her mother. "Anna?" Elizabeth's voice carried through the house as she let herself in. "Mother sent me to talk sense into you about this dump. There's a developer offering." She stopped short seeing Sarah. "Oh, I didn't realize you had company. Dr. Chen from the Historical Society, I said smoothly. Just a routine property assessment. Elizabeth's perfectly plucked eyebrows rose. Historical Society? Please tell me you're not wasting time trying to save this place. The land alone is worth millions to developers. Think about what that could mean for you and James. I caught Sarah's slight head shake. The house's true history needed to remain secret until it could be properly documented and protected. Just doing my due diligence, I replied. You know me, always interested in history. Elizabeth sighed dramatically. Mother's right. You never could think practically. We're having dinner at their house tonight. Do try to dress appropriately this time. With a final disdainful glance at the house, she clicked her way back to her Mercedes. After she left, Sarah and I spent hours documenting everything. Hidden compartments in the library paneling. A concealed staircase behind what I thought was a linen closet. Initials and dates carved into basement beams by people waiting for their journey north. How long until we can go public with this? I asked as the sun began to set. I've called in our top preservation experts. They'll be here tomorrow to begin documentation. Once we verify everything, she paused. Anna, this isn't just about saving a building. This house represents a crucial piece of American history. The grants alone would be substantial, but more importantly, it could become a museum, an educational center. I thought about Great Aunt Emily's words. You'll understand its value. Has she known? Had this secret been passed down through generations? Tonight's going to be interesting, I murmured, watching Sarah drive away. I had to sit through another family dinner, knowing what I knew, keeping this monumental secret while enduring their condescension. But for the first time since inheriting the house, I felt not just defensive, but proud. This place had helped people find freedom. It had sheltered those fighting for justice. And now, in its own way, it would help me find my freedom from the Campbells' constant judgment. I locked up carefully, patting the solid wooden door that had welcomed so many to safety. Your story will be told, I promised the old house. Just not quite yet. As I drove to my in-laws' mansion for dinner, I thought about all those who had passed through the Richardson house seeking freedom. Tonight, I would channel their courage as I sat through one more evening of subtle insults and not-so-subtle manipulation. Let them mock my inheritance. Let them call it worthless. The truth would be revealed soon enough. The Campbell family mansion loomed before me, its manicured lawns and carefully curated gardens a stark contrast to my weathered beach house. I straightened my dress. A simple but elegant black number that Catherine would still undoubtedly find fault with, and rang the doorbell. Anna, darling. Catherine's voice carried that familiar false warmth as she opened the door. We were just discussing your situation. The dining room buzzed with familiar faces. James's father, Richard, occupied his usual place at the head of the table, barely looking up from his phone where he undoubtedly tracked stock prices. Elizabeth and her husband Brad sat to one side, while their cousin Margaret, a real estate agent, gestured animatedly about something. Anna, Margaret called out. Perfect timing. I was just telling everyone about an amazing offer I received for your beach property. Oceanfront Resorts is willing to go to $3 million cash deal. They'll even handle the demolition costs. I took my seat beside James, who squeezed my hand under the table. He knew how much Great Aunt Emily's house meant to me, even if he didn't understand why. That's very kind, Margaret, I said carefully, but I'm not interested in selling right now. The room fell silent. Catherine set down her wine glass with a sharp clink. Anna, she began in that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. I know you felt attached to your aunt's property, but you need to be practical. That house is falling apart. The property taxes alone are manageable within my salary, I finished firmly. Actually, I've been meeting with the Historical Society about. Oh God, Elizabeth interrupted, rolling her eyes. You're not still on about the historical value, are you? It's just an old beach house. If they only knew what Sarah and I had discovered in those hidden rooms just hours ago. The concealed passages that had guided hundreds to freedom. The coded messages still visible in the woodwork. The proof of American heroes who had walked those halls. I've had developers calling all day, Margaret pressed. After Elizabeth mentioned you might be willing to sell, Oceanfront's offer might not last long. You did what? I turned to Elizabeth, feeling my composure crack slightly. You had no right to. We're trying to help you, Catherine cut in smoothly. James, darling, talk some sense into your wife. Think what you could do with $3 million. James shifted uncomfortably. Mother, if Anna wants to keep the house, then she's being selfish, Catherine snapped. That property could be developed into something useful. Instead, she's clinging to a worthless relic because of some misguided sentimentality about her aunt. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Documentation complete. Preservation Board reviewing emergency protected status. Press conference tomorrow? A surge of strength flowed through me. The time for secrets was over. That worthless relic, I said quietly but firmly, is one of the oldest surviving stations on the Underground Railroad on the eastern seaboard. The room fell silent again, but differently this time. Margaret's fork clattered against her plate. The what? Elizabeth asked. I pulled out my phone, displaying the photographs Sarah had discovered. The house wasn't built in 1876. That was a cover story. It was built in the 1830s and served as a crucial safe house for people escaping slavery. The Historical Society has discovered proof that Frederick Douglass himself stayed there. Catherine's face had gone pale. That's impossible. The Preservation Board is meeting right now to grant it emergency protected status. I continued. Once that happens, it will qualify for substantial restoration grants. The Historical Society plans to help convert it into a museum and educational center. But the developers, Margaret stammered, won't be able to touch it. I finished. The house will be protected under both state and federal preservation laws. In fact, I allowed myself a small smile. Given its historical significance, the property value is now estimated at over $25 million. Richard finally looked up from his phone. $25 million? Not that it's for sale, I added. Some things are worth more than money. This house helped people find freedom. Now it can help teach future generations about courage, justice, and the power of standing up for what's right. The dining room erupted in chaos. Margaret frantically called her developer contacts. Elizabeth stared at me with a mixture of shock and newfound respect. Catherine sat frozen, her perfect hostess mask cracking. My phone buzzed again. Sarah had sent a link to the Preservation Board's decision. The Richardson house was now officially protected. James looked at me with wide eyes. You knew about this when you inherited it? I shook my head. Great Aunt Emily knew its importance, but she kept the secret to protect the house. She left it to me because she knew I understand its true value. I met Catherine's eyes across the table, not just its price tag. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The press conference revealing the house's history made national news. Preservation grants and private donations poured in. Historians and researchers arrived to document every detail of the house's role in American history. Catherine tried to salvage her social standing by suddenly becoming the house's biggest supporter. My daughter-in-law is doing such important work, she would tell anyone who listened. We always knew that house was special. I let her spin her stories. The truth was in the house itself, in its hidden rooms and secret passages, in the messages carved into its bones by those who had passed through seeking freedom. We opened the Richardson House Museum exactly 1 year after my dinner confrontation with the Campbells. The restoration had been painstaking, preserving both the house's historical features and its secrets. Each room told a story, of courage, of hope, of the fight for justice. On opening day, I stood on the same porch where I had once felt so uncertain, now addressing a crowd of hundreds. Journalists, historians, and descendants of those who had found shelter in the house gathered to honor his legacy. This house, I told them, represents more than just architecture or history. It represents the courage of those who sought freedom, and those who risked everything to help them find it. Its value isn't in its walls or its worth to developers. Its true value is in the stories it tells and the lessons it teaches. James stood in the crowd, beaming with pride. Over the past year, he had found his own voice, standing up to his family's materialism and supporting my vision for the house's future. Even Catherine had eventually come around, though I suspect the house's newfound prestige had more to do with it than any real change of heart. After the ceremony, I found a quiet moment alone in the library, running my hands along the panels that had once hidden freedom seekers. A photograph of Great Aunt Emily now hung on the wall, her knowing smile watching over the room. You were right, I whispered to her image. I did understand its value. The Richardson House continues to tell its story. School groups tour its halls, learning about courage and justice. Researchers study its secrets, uncovering new details about its role in history. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the sun sets over the Atlantic, I sit on that weathered porch and think about all those who passed through, seeking freedom, finding hope. Catherine still occasionally makes comments about what the property could have been worth to developers. But those comments don't sting anymore, because I know now what Great Aunt Emily knew all along, that some inheritances are worth far more than money, and some houses hold treasures that can't be measured in dollars and cents. They hold our history, our stories, our lessons about right and wrong. And sometimes they hold the power to change not just our lives, but our understanding of who we are and what we stand for. The beach house that was once mocked as worthless now stands as a monument to courage, a testament to the power of preserving history, and a reminder that true value isn't always visible at first glance. Sometimes, like freedom itself, it must be discovered, protected, and shared with the world.